Hi there, my name is Kay Moon, and I'm a twin flame channel and Western astrologer. And this is a video about the new moon in Taurus, which occurred on April 30th of 2022 at 4:27 p.m. Eastern. Please check a time zone converter for your local time. I want to thank you so much for your patience in receiving this lunar update. Normally, if I'm this late in getting one to you, I'm inclined to skip the lunation and move forward, pick up with the next one. However, this lunation is really important. And if you have interest in listening to it, then I think you'll understand why as I move through the transits. It hit this particular lunation hit some really sensitive spots in my own chart. So it just made it necessary for me to be with myself and put my own oxygen mask on first before I was able to be in service to others. So once again, I thank you for your patience. This new moon occurs here at the 10th degree of Taurus in conjunction with Uranus, the change maker, the divine awakener, the energy of revolution and the spirit of growth and evolution. And it's interesting because this particular lunation coincided with an eclipse, a solar eclipse during the new moon in Taurus cycle. And the solar eclipse brought about significant new beginnings in the third dimension. Taurus is a sign that pertains to Earth. And these new beginnings in the third dimension are here to be with us for a little while. And these changes that have occurred, Taurus represents femininity, it represents the feminine body, it represents things that we value and cherish. And so there may be, with Uranus in Taurus, a reversal of some of those things that we have valued and cherished here in the third dimension in service of inspiring greater evolution, greater growth, greater change. It's no accident that at this new moon in Taurus, in this eclipse, we saw a leaked document here in the United States that may overturn the right to an abortion for women as a constitutional right, that may go away. It's not permanent yet, but there is a document linked from the highest judicial court system that we have here in the United States that states that they're looking to move in that direction. And so it's important to really understand the themes that we're seeing at a moment like this, globally, individually, macro, micro, from this larger perspective, that whatever is happening now, whatever change is happening now, Uranus represents our capacity to have a quantum leap, an evolutionary leap forward. It represents our ability to become aspects of the divine more incarnate here on earth. And so where there seems to be something ending, all revolutions come with an end in some way that begin them and then move into a new beginning after them. Whatever feels like it might be coming to a completion, the completion point is really a beginning point, a jump off point for massive growth, massive awakening, massive transformation and change. These are the things that Uranus brings into the picture. And it's bringing these into the picture via this eclipse through the feminine sign of Taurus. So it's an exciting time. It's, you could say, an inflammatory time if you consider inflammation in the body an irritant meant to get our attention so that we can take appropriate action to move toward a healthier state of being. It's also a period of time where, because this change is so wrapped up in things that we value, it can be with a lot of challenge that we embark on or embrace this change because of all the signs in the shadow. Taurus most represents what we're attached to in the shadow. And attachments aren't necessarily a bad thing, but when we become identified with our attachments, when what we're attached to, we either take for granted as a given, or we have a presumption that because we have said attachment, it is who we are. These things can then cause, at a moment like this, a real rupture in our certainty and a real undermining of what can feel like our reality, so that we can get to the clarity that we are not our attachments. We are greater than our attachments. We created our attachments, and therefore we can also uncreate them. So there's some real power in this as well, in owning that we are aspects of the divine incarnate here on earth, and that there is nothing in the world of what's happening on earth that has been created that can be uncreated, and vice versa. It's an opportunity. This particular new moon is an opportunity to come to understand our creatorship and our capacity to really birth from a feminine perspective. Taurus is a feminine sign. That which we'd like to see, the change, that's Uranus, that we'd like to see in the world. This new moon in Taurus is facilitating our ability to birth it. And as we know, every birth is not without its labor pains. So this particular eclipse, it's going to be important, if you are one of my star schoolers, if you've taken any of my astrology classes, to pay attention to the house system or the houses that this eclipse occurred within for you. You want to pay attention to your Taurus Scorpio axis. It's going to be one of the 6 axes of the zodiac, because that's the area of life in which you can expect transformation and change, not just with this eclipse, but with all eclipses in the Taurus Scorpio eclipse cycle. And this is just part of that cycle. For many, this new moon in Taurus is going to represent not just change in what we value, but if we drill down into some of the traditional meanings of Taurus, this is about financial change. Taurus is one of the 2 signs of the zodiac that governs our relationship to money, both earning and spending. Taurus governs the body. So for many of you, you may find that there's some significant change in your body of some format, because this is opposite the sign of Scorpio. For some of you, this may have to do, you may get news or change with your reproductive organs, which Scorpio governs. You may have some news or change in the physical body having to do with the throat, the neck, the thyroid, anything having to do perhaps with the shoulders as well. Taurus governs these body parts. So there may be some shifting along these particular body organs or parts of the body for you. And because Taurus also really deals with fertility, and Scorpio, its opposite sign, sex. During this period of time, this new moon in Taurus, this solar eclipse, this is a period of time where many of you might conceive, where a child may come in through you or your sexual partners, or there could be some other sort of change or transformation in the world of fertility. And because these 2 signs really deal with sensuality and our sexuality, for some of you, this may be the portal via which a new romance blossoms. And for you, and to dig deeper on that, this new romance really occurs not just because of this new moon solar eclipse in Taurus. It occurs because there's some other entities here that are really highlighting romance, and that's the Jupiter Venus conjunction, which I'll talk about momentarily. This particular, and we'll get into that, but just hang tight for that. Let me just come back out of that. We have this new moon having a conversation here with Chariklo, sorry, not Chariklo. With Chariklo via a square. And here she is in the sign of Aquarius. Chariklo governs divine intercession and blessing. And so whenever I see Chariklo play a major role in a lunation, it lets us know that there's an opportunity to call upon those who watch over us from the other side, whether you have a very concrete understanding of God, Allah, or source, if you will. If you have a more general broad understanding of spirit guides, ancestors, this is the moment in time, a moment in time like this, where calling upon them to request divine intervention can go a very long way. And know that they're there, they are listening, they are waiting to be helpful, and that it's important to understand the power of request, the power of the ask, because those on the other side really do understand, including God, that you were created to be a sovereign being. You were created with free will. You were created to make your life that which you choose. They will not force help upon you, but be at the ready should you request it. And so it's really important at a moment like this, especially if there's change that's causing great discomfort for you. It's really important at a moment like this to call upon those from the unseen world and request that divine intervention. Because at a moment like this, that intervention is not only possible, but it's there for the asking when Chariklo is in conversation with a lunation like this. Because she's coming in at a square, this only emphasizes the necessity of asking. And also because she's coming in at a square, it's important to remember how powerful requests can be when they're also at times made in the shadow or made through pain, that sometimes we can unintentionally create karma here that we're not trying to with other people. If we can steady ourselves and really center ourselves in some universal truths about our creatorship, being divine incarnate, recognizing that we have the power to work through what's challenging and make it good. This is a moment of transformation and growth. If we can center ourselves there and make the request from that place, we have a much greater opportunity of seeing good come out of the changes that we're experiencing at this time, no matter how challenging they have been. This is also, unfortunately, because it's the square and it is Chariklo, it does require a bit of letting go, some form of a sacrifice. All revolutions do. There is no revolution without first an ending to the old regime. And so in understanding this, there is a bit of vibration, especially with Neptune having this conversation with Jupiter and Venus here in Pisces. There is a little bit of a vibration of sacrifice here, something that needs to be let go of, whether that is an old identity, an attachment to an old group. Chariklo sits in the sign of groups and friends, an attachment to something that we previously really valued. that we have built our life around having. There is some format here. There's a request from life that we let some things go so that other things can live at this time. And so this particular charical placement tells us that what is being let go of has the opportunity to be returned in another format. And it's important to remember that in Chariclo's mythology, she stood in divine intervention of her son who was struck blind by the goddess that she served. And she asked, will you please return my son's sight? He's a hunter and there's no way he can do what it is he does for a living without it. And while the goddess had mercy, she did not, in fact, return her son's sight. Instead, she gave him the gift of second sight, and he became a very powerful seer. And so while that which is being taken or maybe transforming at this time may be painful, because there's a lot of attachment energy caught up in this from the Taurus aspect, there's also a huge opportunity for something new, the seeds of something new to blossom here in the fullness of time. And it is there for us to request that if that is something we would like. Okay. And that sacrificial energy is only amplified by the way this new moon is in trine with the energy here of Pholus. Pholus can represent really being at the mercy of outside forces that then demand or take something sacrificial from us. In many cases, something that's directly tied to our livelihood or our lifeblood flow. And so where those sacrifices are being made at this time in the name of transformation, growth, and change, again, it's just important to remember that because this is happening through Taurus, the life-bearing sign, that we have the power to bring to life that which we need to live again. It may not look the same, but it certainly has the ability to bring us into our next highest step in this incarnation. This is also a moment in time where, in order for this new beginning energy to happen, it is going to require us to substantiate some boundaries with Saturn square the nodes. The nodal axis governs what we're moving toward. That's North Node in Taurus, and what we're moving away from. That's South Node in Scorpio. With a Saturn square to the nodal axis, Saturn talks about structure, boundary, discipline, focus, timing. With a Saturn square to the nodal axis, Saturn also talks about removals of things, and removals so that we have the capacity to be whole again. And so it's important to recognize that some boundaries will be necessary with this step forward, with this transformation that's happening. There's a moment here that reads a bit like a line in the sand, a throwing down of the gauntlet, a recognition that we can have this or we can have that, but we cannot have it both ways. And so in that recognition, this particular new moon in Taurus is inviting us to step into that which gives us more life at this moment in time, and to let go of anything that we've been attached to, which has been harboring what has probably been a long-awaited ending or completion in that South Node Scorpio. And in doing so, in drawing the line in the sand for ourselves between life and death, we have the opportunity to stand more fully in the light. We have the opportunity to stand more fully in that which fertilizes our life, that which enriches it. And that's the North Node Taurus energy there. But in order to really take advantage of that fertility energy, this new beginning energy, we've got to be willing to let go of the hand of that which has brought death, that which has taken us into our shadow, that which has undermined our ability to fully embrace life, even if we've been attached to that. And for some of you, like I said, there's could have to do with money or a job. I know there's been many women who've, because we're dealing with this first feminine sign of the zodiac, I'm being shown that there's many women who've probably really whew, taken their body on a journey via IVF that has been destructive. And at this time, in order to preserve your own life, if parenthood is something that you're meant for, motherhood is something that is in your bones, it may be time to investigate a more life-giving route to you rather than trying to go the route you've been going. Another example around this for some of you, because this is an axis that has to do with flirtation, sex, romance, sensuality, sexuality, is getting into recognition that there may be certain lovers, love affairs, partners, sexually, romantically, that because of the way the connection has manifested up until this moment in time, you're starting to recognize this is costing me more than it is giving me. And it's time to complete it. It's time to put an end to it. And so where there are these endings, it's the springboard, as I've been saying, to a quantum leap forward, to a new beginning. And in order to get access to it, this Saturn at this eclipse is demanding that there be some boundaries between what was and what will be, that there be some recognition of divine timing in all of this, that there also be a surrender to the reality of that which in the third dimension, Taurus is an earth sign, has been costing us more than it has cured us. And so where we can surrender to those difficult realities, we have the opportunity to step into and bring in more life. Okay. With Pluto sextile Neptune, there is a sense of destiny with this, kind of a sense of this was almost meant to be. There's a sense of purpose, a sense of fatedness that's really propelling us forward from a spiritual place within us. And I'm going to dig more deeply into the romance part of this. I'm going to dig more deeply into that sense of purpose and that sense of destiny in one moment here, because those things are definitely here. And talk a little bit about the upcoming Mercury retrograde, because that's going to feed into this eclipse cycle as well in just a moment. My calendar is open. If you'd like to look at how this eclipse energy impacts you, I actually have some spaces available this coming week and the following, since we'll be moving into the second eclipse in the cycle in the second week of May. It might be a really good time if you've experienced any discomfort, challenge, heaviness, unsettledness with these eclipses. Might be a really good time to have a look at your chart and what it's showing and revealing in terms of your growth and where you're headed, and how to leverage the fullness of this eclipse cycle to settle in to what is a new beginning for you through understanding that which also must be let go of at this time. You can find a reading with me over at kmoonastro.com, and I look forward to spending some time with you. All right, let's break some of this down more specifically. As I mentioned, this particular energy of this solar eclipse is functioning a bit like a crossroads. And there has been this crossroads energy in the air since we began the year, with the Venus retrograde conjunct Pluto, Venus and Pluto being both the rulers of Taurus and Scorpio, respectively. This energy of recognizing if we want certain things we value to live, there are other things we are attached to that we must let go of. And so the recognition of that through the Venus Pluto Venus retrograde cycle, December of 2021, January, and into the beginning of February, put all of us on notice that what's opening up here in front of us are two timelines. There's two paths, and we get to choose. We just can't have them both at the same time. And we need to be willing to be thoughtful and really honor the truth of what's manifested thus far to really understand the potential of what can manifest in the future. We have here at the beginning, we're almost to the shadow period of this Mercury retrograde. By the time you are listening to this, probably already entered the shadow period. Mercury retrograde here in the sign of Gemini, again, duality, two paths, is going to bring to conscious mind that we can't have it both ways. We need to be able to pick a lane, that driving in two lanes simultaneously, unfortunately, at this moment in time, the signaling from the universe is that driving in two lanes simultaneously is both dangerous for the driver, the passenger, and oncoming traffic. And so it's necessary to make a concrete decision to find your way to that which is life-giving, to get on your life raft, if you will. And so I'm going to talk about this more as we get into the Mercury retrograde, but part of why this can feel so consequential has to do with the way Pluto and Neptune are square to one another. When we are not square, sextile, this conversation between the two of them is fraught with potential and power, a sense of spirituality, fate, and destiny. It's also filled with a sense of and a need to find purpose and make meaning out of what we are experiencing. And we're all given the gift, the ability of, as creators incarnate, to make meaning, to decide what something means. And my only caution with this, especially as we get into the Mercury retrograde and Mercury begins to square Neptune at the peak of its retrograde, right as it begins, Neptune can dissolve what Mercury provides, and that's clarity. One of the things that feels really important to say about this is that it's important to make meaning that imbues you with life, that tells the story of your victory, that tells and embeds in your consciousness the story of your overcoming and your growth. Because with this particular type of energy, Pluto representing endings, death, the underworld, unfortunately, there's a setup here, a trap, a mental cognitive distortion, if you will, that can have us tell ourselves pain stories as if they somehow provide purpose. And in actuality, it just provides limiting beliefs upon which we live a more limited life. So where you have the capacity at this time to begin to unpack some of the transformations and what's happening in a way that's empowering to you, as opposed to a way that diminishes your access to the source spark within you, the God spark within you, where you have access to telling yourself stories about what you're going through that give you life. This is going to be really critical. And so again, going back to that example that I shared at the beginning of this broadcast, there are many who could look at what's happening with the banning of abortion rights here in the United States as catastrophic, right? There are many who could slip into calamity consciousness around this. And there's so many other, indignities on earth at this time where there's just, so many ways in which people are being hurt or undermined or disenfranchised or dictated to. What we see here is an opportunity to decide if we're going to move into creator consciousness or calamity consciousness around this. From calamity consciousness, we're retelling ourselves the story of how much pain we're in and how limited our lives are and how awful Earth is. And look at those awful people who want abortions. Look at those awful people who want to protect abortions. There's always this story of an us against them where we are the loser in calamity consciousness. But if you can move into creator consciousness, you have the opportunity to see this moment in time on the micro level now, bringing this back to our own lives. Whatever's changing right now, we have the opportunity to see it as an opportunity for advancement and consciousness, growth, the capacity for more people to come together than to be apart, and the opportunity to advocate for a collective where everyone is included and everyone is valued and all perspectives are heard instead of separation consciousness. And that's really at the root of this. Are we standing in unity consciousness or are we standing in separation consciousness? That's really the root of this in a lot of ways. And so this sense with Neptune and Pluto adds a sense of internal significance to this moment in time. There's a sense of consequence to this. There's a recognition that we are indeed at a crossroads, and the choices we make from here will have repercussions and ramifications that we may feel for several years, if not decades to come. And so it's not a time to look away. In wherever area of life the change is happening. It's also not a time to ignore or avoid. No choice is still a choice. We are not victim to the tides. We've either worked with them or we've chosen to be swallowed by them. That's life. So with that said, it's also with this a beautiful time to get some support, whatever way support works for you, whether it's talking to a friend, therapy, group coaching, with Neptune and Pluto in conversation. Addictions can certainly come up at this time as a coping mechanism, whatever addictive tendencies you may have, whether it's overworking, sexing, drugging, drinking, gaming, binge watching, eating, whatever version of, whoa, this is a whole lot and I need to just tone down what I'm feeling. So whatever version of that you might have in your life, this particular eclipse, if the changes have been significant for you, may have brought a revisitation of some of those urges up for you. And it's just important to take an opportunity as you can to get support, but also in the bite-sized chunks that work for you to be with the very powerful urges and feelings that are coming up at this time, because they're rich and they're filled with information about who we are and who we are becoming if we would just take the time to be with ourselves and look. Okay. So now let's get to some of the fun, yummy stuff. And that's this Jupiter-Venus conjunction in Pisces. Oh my gosh. This is for a new moon solar eclipse. The two of these coming together is like romance on steroids in the sign of Pisces. It is whimsical. It is magic. It is suddenly meeting the perfect person at the perfect time, in the perfect way, in the perfect place. It's in such a way where it's like, oh my God, it's you. Like it's like a first glance, magnetic, drawn together, this is it kind of energy. And because this is happening in the sign of Pisces, there could be something ineffable, unnameable about this. There could be something that just feels like mystery. You can't put your finger on what it is. You just know it is right. And so there's a real beauty in this for those of you who may be experiencing this energy in this way. There's a real beauty in trusting that this is what it needs to be for right now. And that if it is, in fact, what it needs to be, as I was mentioning with the other aspects here, for some of you, this means you've got to draw a line in the sand between allowing this new thing to flourish and whatever's taken place in the past romantically for you. You're going to need to forgive. Pisces really has a great understanding of the necessity of forgiveness. Forgive the past, forgive who you were, forgive your choices, forgive other people and the way that they've hurt you. Let go. There's a real need to let go, give in, surrender, and allow this love to take you where, in fact, it may be guiding you. Because, like I said, there is a destined appointment here for some of you experiencing this energy in this way. Now, just because the appointment is on the schedule, it doesn't guarantee that you're actually going to show up. So there is that for some of you as well, where you may meet someone and then it is right in all these ways and you just shut it down, you reject it. But my encouragement to you, if you're hearing this and that this has been your experience, is to give yourself the opportunity and the space to just trust that this is unfolding in the way that it is for a reason. This is a new beginning eclipse. And so there is an opportunity for new love to blossom here that is in some way kind of meant to be. And so my encouragement to you is to give yourself the space to just settle into this new thing, knowing that sacrifices, yeah, they're going to have to be made in order for it to live, but that's also okay. It's also okay to move forward. Okay, now there's a complete opposite way this energy can unfold for those of you who are quite single, or maybe you're already married. There can be a renewal in the marriage in some way, or if you're quite single, not looking, not interested, this Pisces stellium that we have now, Jupiter, Venus, Neptune, Nessus, where we can be a little OCD, Mars, and Juno. When you put all of this together, you do, in fact, get in a heavy Piscean energy. When I was reviewing all of that energy sitting in Pisces, you know, my tongue-in-cheek kind of reference point for this lunation was, oh, so this is what it's like to be a Pisces. Some of you may have experienced a lot of mixed emotion and lack of emotional clarity, a little bit of being lost in the sauce. Piscean energy can be connected to depression, drowning in emotion, so to speak. It's the energy of being in the veil, so to speak, not necessarily in the world, not necessarily fully on the other side, but somewhere in between. And this in between energy can cause people who really like decisiveness and clarity, the opposite energy, Virgo, for example. It can cause a lot of unsettledness at this time. There can be a lot of internal turmoil and conflict as our sense of expansion, hope, and optimism and creativity, our values, our connection to spirit, that which we've been dedicated and focused on, our motivation and our commitment. That's all these planetary energies are swirling in some sort of in between space. So, where that's the case for you, I invite you to just surrender. That phrase, lean in, comes to mind. Let the swirling be the swirl, be with the feelings, be with the emotion. This is messy, messy energy. And there's a reason why we have this as a part of the 12 signs. It's because it's through the chaos that order can be born. It's through the mess that magic can occur. So where you're able to, let it in, take some time to just be with this energy. Try not to force your way through it, but instead feel your way through it. This is going to give you a chance to come out of this with the wisdom that you were meant to seek or meant to find in deep diving for these pearls. But where there's resistance, we come out maybe just a little bit stunted in our growth. Just maybe a little part of us shaved off and held back. We gain our true sense of self by being all of ourself, and the more power we want to wield in the world comes by non-resistance to all of that which we already are. So, and that includes this heavier, can be for some of you, Piscean, messy, all the feels kind of energy. So if that's something you're experiencing with this eclipse, just hang on, because in just a couple of weeks, by the time we get to the second half of May, you're going to find you feel a lot different, especially as we head into June. It'll feel like maybe waking up, because Pisces represents sleep. You'll feel like you're waking up from, a very long winter or a bad dream, and you can finally get your bearings again. And that'll be when more of these planets pop into the sign of Aries, the first sign of the zodiac, the rebirth. Okay. But for now, there's messages in the mess. Lean into it. Give yourself that extra space and time to talk it out, write it out, feel it out, dance it out, paint it out, whatever you got to do to be with this. This is the work of this moment. Maybe cancel a few appointments where you can, make some extra space, unburden yourself from commitments to the outer world, because this transit is giving you an appointment with your inner world so that you can really understand yourself at a deeper level and uncover some things about self that maybe you hadn't quite seen before, that will empower you to have this new beginning. Okay. So yummy romance energy, Jupiter, Neptune. Depending upon how you do with Pisces energy, it can be dreamy, perfect time for making a lot of art, or it can be depressing. And I can say with certainty, if you have some significant water placements in your chart, Scorpio, Cancer, or Pisces, just be careful, because all of this water energy can get very heavy. We can see a lot of increased rains or flooding in certain areas of the world with this. But it can also bring a lot of crying, purging, especially for those of you who are very tapped into and sensitive to collective energies here on the planet. Okay, so be mindful of getting the support that you need. Don't wallow in this if you can avoid it, but definitely wade into it and give yourself the opportunity to explore the messages in it for you. Okay, Mars Juno here is also bringing, new not commitment, but yeah, commitment, energy, motivation to be committed in certain ways. For many of you, this is going to be about romance as well. So there's double the romantic energy here with Jupiter, Venus conjunct, Mars, Juno conjunct, facilitating kind of, like I said, this is the kind of energy where it's like two people meet and then they just decide on like within 48 hours, okay, it's you. Yeah. You want to get married? Yeah, let's get married. And then it's a wrap. That's your person. This is the kind of eclipse energy and planetary energies that make something like that occur. And so there's a bit of magic to this and a real need to kind of just trust that this was and is something that was a destined appointment, and you get to show up to destiny or not, however you choose with your free will. All right. Let me see what else I have in my notes here. Lastly, I want to say with that Pisces stellium, there can be a ton of psychic transmission energy, especially for those of you who operate as healers here on planet Earth. You work with energy work, you work with energy medicine in any kind of way. You do any type of spiritual practice that helps people heal and align their spirit body with their physical body. This particular energy, it's on the one hand amplifying your gifts, and on the other hand, it can feel very overwhelming because Pisces represents the energy of the collective subconscious. With so much energy here tapped into the collective subconscious at this time, what you're feeling at this time, I just want to just say this for all of those who are healers out here, what you are personally feeling consciously, you may not yet be able to recognize that it's not yours, that it belongs to the people you may be close to, family, soul group, other kinds of loved ones. And so if you're having that experience of feeling flooded for no reason, emotionally, not sure why, purging emotionally, physiological symptoms that seem to kind of come out of nowhere, they may be coming through the collective subconscious into your physical body for healing. And so I just wanted to validate that that's a really significant part of the journey for many light workers here on Earth. They kind of stand in as biological intercessors for the collective to purge, if you will. They stand in as shamans who kind of take on the illness of the collective and then purge it out, transmute it. This is a significant period of time for that, for those of you who operate in that sort of divine intercessory way for the rest of us on the planet. And I just want to take a moment to acknowledge you, to thank you for your service. I know consciously, if you had a choice, knowing what you know about what this experience can be like, you'd be like, heck no, I'm not doing that. Nevertheless, your soul has been wired for it, and you're doing it anyway. And we all just thank you. We thank you for your service and for your light here on Earth. And, we lift you up at this time in gratitude for the ways in which your work helps all of us come back home to who we are. All right, beloveds, I believe that's all I have. For those of you who are finding yourself stepping into some sort of romantic partnership at this time, it's very rare that I would do this on a Lightworker energy update, but I'm going to recommend that you have a listen to the twin flame update for this particular lunation, because it will shed some light on kind of why what you're experiencing can feel so magical. It can feel so destined and meant to be. And I'll talk about that during that update. Okay, beloveds, if you'd like to book some time with me, you certainly can. I'm over at kmoonastro.com, and it's a perfect time to get your chart read, to have a listen, to take a look at these eclipse cycles and understand the way that the entirety of the cycle, not just one eclipse, will affect you. And finally, once again, I'd like to just say thank you. I know a lot of you like to have these updates sooner, but I'm sure you can appreciate the need for the reader to put her own oxygen mask on first. Thanks, and please give this video a like, a subscribe if you heard something that resonates and you're new, and a share. Take great care, everyone, and bye for now.